When the Chicago Bulls signed Lonzo Ball in the summer of 2021 via a sign and trade to a contract worth 4 years, $80 million, the thought at that time was this was the Bulls' point guard for the future. The point guard to put alongside Zach Lavine and Nikola Vucevic, and then of course later on signing DeMar DeRozan a week later, that Lonzo was going to be that glue guy that fit all of these together. The Bulls needed a point guard, a true point guard, something they had been looking to put in place for some time, and while there was some skepticism from fans and the media on whether that was an overpay for Lonzo Ball, most believed this to be a great signing, one the Bulls desperately needed, and sure enough, coming out of the gate in the 21-22 season, everything was clicking with the new look Bulls roster. Starting out the year 4-0, would consistently string wins together throughout the year, a healthy balance of offense and defense with elite offensive players in DeMar and Zach and even Nikola Vucevic, your strong defenders in Lonzo Ball, Patrick Williams, and Alex Caruso coming off the bench. The Bulls somehow found themselves sitting number 1 in the East just after the All-Star break, but then things fell apart from there, shortly after the All-Star break that season, in large part due to Lonzo Ball suffering a knee injury which later became a bone bruise, and what was initially a 6 to 8 week timeline for his return kept getting pushed out further and further, making it now more than 2 years since we've seen Lonzo return to action. His last game on the court being January 14th of 2022. And while throughout that time period we kept hearing updates on Lonzo's status, the possibility of him returning in the 22-23 season before being ruled out for that season in its entirety, and then of course the third surgery on that same knee, really the fourth when you factor in that he had that surgery on that left knee back between his rookie and sophomore season. But that final surgery being the most complicated, a cartilage transplant, which has an extensive recovery time and a procedure in which not a single player in NBA history has ever been able to return back to the game. The few players who have had cartilage transplants in the NBA, they were never able to make a comeback to the league. But for the first time, we just had the most positive Lonzo Ball update we've received since him first injuring that knee in early 2022. That Lonzo Ball has finally started sprinting, cutting, and jumping without pain, and has been responding well in these workouts. And the reason this is such a big deal as it relates to Lonzo Ball's rehab is because throughout this period in which Lonzo has been out, he's never been able to get beyond the point of sprinting or cutting without experiencing any pain. Whenever we heard about setbacks in the recovery process, it was always when it came time to sprinting and cutting to see how he would respond. And Lonzo and the doctors were simply befuddled in explaining and understanding why he was still experiencing pain in that knee. But now we get this excellent news that he's been able to get to this point in his recovery where he's not experiencing any pain, a very positive sign for his road to recovery and potentially returning next season. Now, I do want to be clear, this does not mean that Lonzo is fully healed. It doesn't mean that he is for sure coming back next season or that he's even going to be able to return to the game of basketball ever again. We do still have to remember that no player has ever come back from this procedure. We have to remember that this is the 4th surgery that he's had on that knee throughout his career. We have to remember that he hasn't played 2.5 years. And also keep in mind, Lonzo still has not begun any basketball activities, especially as it relates to running drills or any kind of contact activity in practice. But regardless, the fact that Lonzo has finally gotten over this hump, and finally being able to sprint and cut without incident does give us hope that we could see Lonzo Ball return to the court next season. Now, will Lonzo be the same player he was before, missing all that time? Very unlikely, or at least it would take a very considerable amount of time for him to be able to get back to that point when you miss so much NBA action. And I also don't have any doubts that if Lonzo does return, he's likely going to be on some strict minutes restriction for a while. But even if Lonzo is, say, only 60% of the player he used to be, and if he's able to at a minimum maintain his shooting, because man was shooting 42% on high volume over 7 attempts per game. For reference, that's actually better than what Coby is currently at in his best shooting season. Even just to have him operate as a catch and shoot shooter would be huge for the Bulls. The other thing that gives me hope is that Lonzo Ball is one of the highest IQ players out there. A super smart, savvy point guard, impeccable court vision, great instincts and awareness. Like, as much as your body might give up on you, you don't lose that IQ. He's still going to be a smart basketball player that knows how to make the right plays. So I know I'm probably being a little too optimistic when it comes to a potential Lonzo Ball return, but I do firmly believe that even if they only get 50 to 60% of what Lonzo Ball used to be, that is a huge come up for the Bulls, especially when you're talking about a player we thought we would never see return to the court again. Still, I do have my doubts that we'll see Lonzo return to the game. I want to be wrong. I want to be so wrong. But I'm also being realistic and understanding the history of this procedure and how it's impacted other players' careers. But all I know is if Lonzo Ball can come back and he's able to still make an impact on the court after being out 2.5 years, It's going to be one of the greatest comeback stories in the history of sports. I'm hoping for it. Anyway, wanted to share my thoughts on this recent Lonzo Ball update that we got yesterday right before the game. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.